Okay, today is the 23rd day of Kislev, the 24th of December. And our offer still stands. You get a Chanukiah for free if you wait with your Christmas presents until until the end of the 25th and light a Hanukkah menorah. Okay, so where were we? We were in, yes. Okay, so we explained.
I'm not used to give a shas if you swell the television.
Okay.
Whole shas.
A whole shas. That's it. People want Schadenstein. That's like people want a Schadenstein. That's like $1,500. And it used to be the shas was like 300 shekels a long time ago. They just had Koren just had a sale on the Rav Steinsaltz's shas in English.
Oh?
Only $1,600.
For the whole set?
For the whole set.
Only.
Even in Israel, they sell it in dollars. I guess. I don't know. Okay. So we talked about the souls yesterday, souls versus worlds. And that the Arizal, with his more complex understanding, brings us closer back to the pshat. That's what we mean when we say that in the end, the deepest secrets are really the pshat, the plain meaning of the verse. So he touched the cup of Jacob's thigh. The thigh represents offspring. So it means that he blemished all the souls of Israel from then on in that place. But he could only affect their thighs. He couldn't affect the heart. He couldn't affect the mind. But according to ולפי כל הנ"ל אינו עניין אלא למעלה בספירות. But still, even according to this is only talking about how it is above. What's Chassidus' problem with Kabbalah? That you learn Kabbalah and you know it well, but then you say, so how is this connected to real life? There's no clear direction how to apply it. Sometimes the Arizal explained how to apply, but it wasn't very often. So it turned out that it was a very theoretical theology, let's call it, and there was no direct application. So he says, to understand how it is here, we have to go deeper into what he says. So what it can be understood is through the explanation of the Arizal, who states that the blemish occurred in Netzach and Hod, like we saw, that you take both of them. Rabbi Moses Cordovero also acknowledged that the Tikkun Zohar that says it was in Hod is correct. He just made it like an inter-inclusion. He said, since it's Netzach, it's also Hod. But here, he's saying, no, one is the right thigh is in Zeir Anpin, in the masculine side, and the feminine side is Hod. The male and female aspects were in a state of being back-to-back. When they're in a state of being back-to-back, that's when this happens. והוא על פי הקדמת עניין מבואר במקום אחר בדרוש דם עלק, שנאמר בו ויזנב בך כל הנחשלים אחריך. So we need to understand, what does this back-to-back mean? Okay, the Arizal has this, and Chazal have, the sages, apparently it comes from the sages, again, that they were back-to-back, Adam and Eve, when they were created. But what does this mean in practice? Like for me today, what does it mean that I'm back-to-back? That I'm back-to-back with my feminine side. What does that mean? So yeah, you can always take it to the realm of marriage and say you don't communicate with your wife. Okay, so. But even if it's just me, there's one person, it's just Jacob himself. So what does it mean that he's back-to-back with his feminine side, without his wives? So he says, to understand this, we have to go to what's explained elsewhere in the discourse on Amalek. Regarding the verse, ויזנב בך כל הנחשלים אחריך. And there it says, he attacked your rear, all the stragglers behind you. So the word behind you is achor, is acharecha. So that's in Deuteronomy 25:18. And the emphasis is on the behind you. Specifically, it refers to those who are in a state of back, being in the back, achoraim. Lemishu b'bchinat achoraim, signifying a lack of direct connection or alignment. That we understand. The question is to what? So to understand, what are they back-to-back with? So he says, and again, it could be that you're back-to-back with a million things. But the Torah has something specific in mind. That's what he wants to say. That the Torah, when it says back, that it's your achoraim, and that's the way the Arizal thinks, because his world is a world of Torah. So he thinks about this particular thing. What is he thinking about? Vehu kmo shekatuv lechtech acharai bamidbar. Jeremiah says.
The what says?
Jeremiah.
Okay.
In the very beginning of his book, he says, "I remember the kindness of your youth, the love of your betrothal, how you followed me in the wilderness." Now, in English, how you followed, he's talking about the Jewish people. He's saying that when we came out of Egypt, following God was an act of faith. We'll see in a second, because there was nothing to go on. Where were you until now? And now you're telling us you're going to take us back to the land of Israel. Okay, said we'll take it on faith. So as we'll see in a moment, taking it on faith is not such a great thing. It's called, you followed me. Lechtech acharai. In English, it doesn't sound so strong. But in Hebrew, you could say it in a number of different ways. Lechtech iti bamidbar.
But it says acharai.
Right, right. It could say, you walked with me, like it says, by Noach, et Elokim, it Noach, et, like iti.
In many ways.
Right, there's many relationships that could have been between God and the Jewish people. But the relationship is that you went behind me. So really the way to translate it would have been how you went behind me, not behind my back. It's not doing anything bad, but you see my back, as it were. You don't see my front. We don't have a face-to-face relationship yet. V'nidbe'er sham, and in that discourse on Amalek, again, because Amalek hurt the stragglers that are behind you. Okay? נתבאר שם דעניין יציאת מצרים ברוחניות הוא היציאה מן המיצר והעוני בנפש ואין עוני אלא מן הדת. So what's going on here? There's explained there that the spiritual concept of the exodus from Egypt. What is the spiritual concept? Not what happened. I know what happened. But what does it signify? It represents the departure from the narrowness and poverty of the soul. And true poverty is defined as a lack of knowledge. Now we say knowledge, we don't mean like you didn't read the Encyclopedia Britannica. We say you don't know someone. You don't have a connection. It's a lack of dat. Dat, Adam yada et Chava ishto, that Adam knew his wife Eve, means that there's a connection. Vezeu shekatuv ve'ele etchem me'oni Mitzrayim. And that's what it says in Exodus 3:17. I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt. What was the affliction of Egypt? A regular person, when he looks at the world and he says affliction, okay, maybe you're in the hospital, maybe you're in jail, maybe you're this, maybe you're that. The Torah, when it looks at affliction, it says the only affliction that's worth talking about, really, in the end, the affliction of life, is if a person doesn't know God. So his whole life it doesn't matter if it's very good or very bad, it's afflicted. Because he's missing the main ingredient. Because the whole purpose of life is to come to know God. So if you have no knowledge of God, so you're afflicted. So I will take you out of the affliction of Egypt, says Moses. Where? El eretz tova urechava. There, a few verses earlier, he said, to a good and broad land. So what's going on? כי במצרים כתיב היה מן העם, שלא היה בהם רק בחינת אמונה בלבד תכלית הקטנות. Because when they were in Egypt, it says, and the people believed. They believed Moses. They believed Moses' connection with God. They believed that God had come to Moses. But that indicates that their state was one of mere faith. And he says, mere faith, it's only faith. The ultimate form of small-mindedness. There's dat and there's emunah. There's knowledge of God and there's faith in God. This is like a blow to every religion, right? Because what do you mean? We're not interested in faith, so what are you going to show me? No? You need to know today and bring into your heart that God is God, that Avaya is God. If it doesn't become that, then we have to understand what is that. But that is not small-mindedness. Now, it's an amazing thing that emunah is small-mindedness. Now this is if you just come from a Hasidic tradition and you read this, it's fine. If you come from my tradition and you read this, it's very shocking. Why? Because My tradition, learning with Rav Yitzchak for so many years, Emunah is the highest thing. How can you say it's small-mindedness? But it is, because, first of all, because in the Zohar tradition, Emunah is Malchus. And it's not in Keter, it's in Malchus always. It's Iyu Emet ve'Iyu Emunah. Emet is Yesod, and Emunah is Malchus. So in the usual tradition in Chassidus and in Kabbalah, Emunah is considered to be something very low. Faith is for weak people. Strong people, they know. They're not about, and what do you mean by know? So it's very easy today to explain it, actually. And it's very common here, especially here in Israel, but it's everywhere in the world, that you meet someone and you see that you wear a hat and this and that, and you did something good for them, let's say. And they feel like they owe you something. So they say to you, look, I until 6th grade was in a religious school. So people in America, they'll say, until I was 18, I went to Sunday school. Or Hebrew school, whatever they call it. So what are they trying to say? I have faith, I believe. Said it, but you're not 18 anymore, or you're not in 6th grade anymore. What have you done since then? So to have faith is like to be a small child. It's like to say, I have a connection. It's not that I have no connection. I have some connection. But I stopped developing it when I was if I had a bar mitzvah. Maybe I didn't even have a bar mitzvah. I just went to Hebrew school, but that's the same idea. So what does he want to say? He says, I also have a connection. That's small-mindedness. So if Moshe Rabbeinu would come now, you would probably follow him. Why? Because you say, I got nothing to lose. It's not so great here in Egypt anyway. So the chances of going, but when Moses says, I'm going to take you to a broad and wide land, Eretz Tova U'Rechava, what does it mean that it's Eretz Tova U'Rechava? It's taking, Eretz is always Malchus. I'm going to widen your understanding of God's kingdom. I'm going to give you dat. And that's why we say that Moshe Rabbeinu himself, he's dat. He himself is dat. Meaning, if you don't have Moshe in the picture, you can never come to dat. And it says Moshe is one of the 7 shepherds. What do shepherds do? So the Alter Rebbe explains, a shepherd takes emunah and he nurtures it, he shepherds it until it becomes dat. That's why Moses is called the Raya Mehemna, the shepherd of faith. Why do you need to shepherd faith? It's like a little lamb. Faith is a little lamb, and you have to get it food, and you have to take it out to pasture, and you have to bring it back and take care of it until it grows. And when it grows up, what's it going to become? It's going to become knowledge of God. Completely different thing. Now, a person can say, is this knowledge like, again, because in Western terms, this is like, so do you have proof of God now? It doesn't matter. I live not like someone who has just faith. My whole life is consciously connected to God. It's a completely different thing. I'm not like a child. The child is the same thing you would say about food, right? If you're 5 years old, 6 years old, maybe even 12 or 13, and you sit down to the meal, so what do you know about food? That they serve it to you and you eat it. That's all you know. What happens if you're a gastroenterologist? Or you're a nutritionist, or you're a 3-star Michelin cook? You know something, food is something entirely different for you. Completely different. So this is when you were small. Now this is so he says to have faith, that's to be a chol b'chol. To have faith in God, that's to be back to back. So they were in the state of back to back. It means that they were only in faith. That's all they had. And again, this is small faith. This really is very undeveloped faith, which is just the beginning. He doesn't hold from right. He doesn't hold from faith. He says everything is to get to that.
By the beginning and the end, is bitachon more das than it is.
Bitachon is an application of faith. Yeah, it's not that. Although we say that when there is great bitachon, it has to come from dat already. It won't come from faith. No. But it's an application. Yeah. So a lot of times,
I've been struggling with this for years.
A lot of times, what we say, faith is in the keter, and that is the application of keter. Meaning, that's why sometimes you don't count both. You say either there's crown or there's knowledge. It's not that it's either or. It's just that one is super conscious and one is conscious. Okay? So this is the direction he's going to develop now to explain it. Okay. That's why they called him Rachel.
Meir sees them from behind.
It's even more that Rebbe said that if I would have seen Rashbi from in front, I would have known a lot more. What, you have something that you didn't know? He says, okay, if I would have seen my teacher from the front, because he didn't get really a chance to see him.